Welcome back to Salam Media. You're still tuned in. We're coming to you live from our headquarters here in Johannesburg. The time is 12 minutes past 8. And we'll be touching on a very, very interesting topic here. I was reading this article yesterday, and it read that Spain and Ireland are discussing a collective plan to recognize Palestine as a state amid Israel's war on Gaza. The Premier of Spain and Ireland are set to meet on Friday, which is tomorrow, to discuss a collective plan to recognize Palestine's statehood. This meeting comes as the death toll of Israel's war in Gaza has surpassed 33,000. The mounting deaths, starvation, and destruction of infrastructure in the besieged enclave have resulted in growing international criticism of Israel within Europe. The concerns over Israel's war on Gaza have also led to shifting positions, including more nations considering the possibility of recognizing the Palestinian state. I will be speaking to Professor Mia Swart. Professor, thank you so much for joining us here on Salam Media, and welcome.
Good morning.
Yeah, Prof. I think we're witnessing something. Although some might say it's a bit late. European countries, well, not all of them, but a huge bulk of them, starting to change, their tone and how they are approaching the issue of Palestine, and also starting to consider their relations with Israel. Can we pinpoint exactly what could be behind all of this? Because what's currently happening in Palestine didn't start on October the 7th. It's been going on for almost 70, 80 years. But right now, there seems to be a shift, with European countries voicing out and also condemning the acts of Israel. Can we, put a finger to it about what's behind this change?
All right. So, first of all, it is positive that countries such as Spain, Ireland, Malta, Slovenia, especially those four countries, are becoming proactive in trying to influence other European states to, first of all, recognize Palestine as a state, and then push for arms embargoes. Because at the moment, it's really only Spain that has an arms embargo in terms of, there being an embargo not to provide weapons to Palestine. But I would be very careful to overstate this. There's definitely not a collective shift, or a shift that, in my opinion, is significant enough to even call a real mind shift. Because remember that there are almost 50 countries in the European Union. So 4 out of 50 is not that much. We know Poland and Romania has, shown sort of that it's in solidarity with Palestine, but this is still a small percentage. What is exciting is that the Spanish Prime Minister is currently approaching countries such as Portugal to try and get them to come on board. But Portugal has now stated that it's not going to make a unilateral move to recognizing Palestinian statehood. It's only going to do so in a collective sense. So it's only going to get on board if a significant amount of European states get on board. And this, at this point, I don't think is that likely. Certainly, if one looks at countries such as the UK, Germany, Italy, it's extremely unlikely that those countries will change course. We know that Germany is the second largest arms provider. This is mostly about arms, or to a large extent, this is about arms. We know that Germany is the second largest arms provider to Israel. Italy, interestingly, is the third largest arms provider. So, this is going to be incredibly difficult to change. And I don't see this changing, for the foreseeable future, for sure. So we must be we must be careful to say, oh, there's a mind shift. There's 50 countries in Europe, and only about a tenth of those countries have really spoken out against Palestine.
No, I think you make a really good point there about just the sheer numbers of the countries that are still stuck on that mindset shift. But maybe if you could elaborate on the significance of the countries that have come out. I mean, looking at this article that I have here, the likes of Spain, Ireland, Belgium are advocating for a more critical stance towards Israel within the EU. How significant is this, and what factors do you think contribute to their positions in comparison to the UK and or France and the other countries that are still hell bent on their positions?
Well, we see that Belgium is coming closer to the position of Spain, but it's a difficult position for Belgium because it's traditionally so influential in the EU, and it's often acts as the chair of, in a chair position at the EU. So my sense is that Belgium is still to an extent on the fence. Ireland has shown great courage over the last months. Right from the beginning, we've seen Ireland being, openly and publicly pro-Palestine. I think what is important now is that the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, is approaching individual European leaders and trying to get them on board. But I think this is going to be incredibly difficult. I think the Portuguese example shows that countries are going to be scared to do this as a unilateral move, and they're going to only want to publicly, come out as pro-Palestine and support army embargoes and support Palestinian statehood in the UN, for example, if they feel they're part of a group. And getting that group together is going to be incredibly difficult.
You mentioned, some countries might be scared. What could be behind? Because looking at these countries and just how much pro-Palestine advocacy is so active in those countries, and you have the citizens of those countries calling out their government on a day-to-day basis, saying you need to do more. We've seen what South Africa has done with the recent ICJ case. You need to do more. But what do you think is holding them back? Why can't they act in the same voice as of those of their citizens?
Well, first of all, it's not clear that German citizens, for example, are so pro-Palestine, right? So the German government might absolutely not think that it's, that it's supporting the public if it's going to act or vote for Palestinian statehood. So certainly in a country like Germany, to some extent England, there's still great support for Israel. So they don't feel like they're going against their populations. And of course, the German and Italian examples, to some extent the French example, these are countries that have historically, over 70 years, helped Israel to establish as a state. And just last week, we saw in the International Court of Justice, Germany speaking about its historic responsibility to support Israel. So this goes very deep for them. So for this to become shaken up or to change, again, I don't see this happening for sure. I think that the most influential, let's call it the richest EU states, are not going to recognize Palestine as a state, and that one will have to hope that in terms of sort of mid-level influential countries, more and more countries will start supporting Palestine. It's also a problem that if Europe is supposed to act collectively, the underlying ethos of the European Union is that it's a bloc that acts collectively in the interest of all Europeans. So it's not really part of the European sort of union culture for states to come out individually and make, serious pronouncements on the statehood of other countries, or for states to sort of, see itself as forming little groupings that goes against the overall EU position. So, the EU as a whole has not recognized Palestine as a state. And this is problematic, and I don't see how this could happen without one of the major countries such as Germany, major pro-Israel countries such as Germany or the UK turning. Well, we know that, having said that, the UK is no longer a member of the EU, we know this, or it's, we've seen Brexit, in other words, the UK has distanced itself, but the influence of the British Prime Minister is still very strong within Europe.
Mm. I want us to go on a quick break, and maybe you can answer this next question when we come back from the break. You touched a bit on, the UN, and the countries, recognizing Palestinian statehood. Tomorrow on Friday, the United Nations Security Council is scheduled to vote on a Palestinian request for full UN membership. I want us to touch a bit on that. How do we see it panning out? I know in 2011 they tried, but that request was denied. So when we come back from the break, maybe we can touch a bit about that UN Council vote on full Palestinian membership to the UN Council.
Okay.
All right.
This is Salam Media.
You know, it's a wonder how kids get anything done these days. With all the distractions, when do they even get time to study? As a mother, all I can really do is make sure they have all they need to perform at their best. That's why I choose to include Sunfoil, triple refined pure sunflower oil with every meal I make. Naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether I'm cooking, frying, or baking, I know every dish will be a wholesome one. Sunfoil, now we're cooking.
After the recent attacks on Gaza, many families have been displaced with their homes left destroyed. Through your donations, our teams are on the ground in Gaza, providing support and delivering necessary aid to families affected. The people of Gaza need your help. Give hope. Donate today to Penny Appeal South Africa. www.pennyappeal.org.za 031 1100 573.
We are here on the ground with many appeal organizations in Gaza.
Discover the Africa of your dreams and surround yourself with her spectacular beauty. Relax beneath her serene sunsets and explore wildlife at its natural best. It's where the pride of Africa comes together. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve. Get to know the Big Five or cruise on an elephant safari game drive. Interact with lion and tiger cubs and enjoy world-class halal cuisine while we pamper you during your 5-star stay. Indulge in the true African experience. For reservations, call now on 042-203-1400 or visit kwantu.co.za. The Kwantu Private Game Reserve, the place of gathering.
Are you ready for a journey of spiritual significance? Join Khidmatul Awam Pilgrim Services for an unforgettable Umrah experience during Dhul Qa'dah. Walk in the footsteps of the Hujjaj, guided by esteemed scholars Mulana Dawood Samson and Mulana Muhammad Silaji. Our Dhul Qa'dah package departs on May 10th and returns on May 25th via Egypt Air out of Johannesburg. Experience 9 nights in the blessed city of Medina and 5 nights in the sacred city of Mecca, with packages starting from just 27,500 rands. Enjoy a fully guided tour, including Umrah visa, Jumu'ah prayers in both harams, seamless transfers, and enriching ziyarats. Feel free to visit our offices nationwide and speak to our knowledgeable consultants, or simply contact us at 010-6005-786. Khidmatul Awam Pilgrim Services, your pathway to a blessed journey.
Welcome to Pharaoh Auto Investments, where luxury meets perfection. Located at 92 Rivonia Road, Sandton, on level 2 and level 3, our showroom is a sanctuary of opulence. Step into the realm of prestige as you explore our exquisite collection of luxury vehicles, meticulously curated to meet the highest standards of quality and sophistication. But that's not all. Introducing Origins by Pharaoh, our sister company dedicated to offering affordable luxury vehicles without compromising on quality. Experience elegance within reach. Ready to embark on your journey to luxury? Contact us today at 011 444 9460 or email us at info@pharaohgroup.com for more information. Ramadan Mubarak to all our valued customers. Pharaoh Auto Investments and Origins by Pharaoh, where luxury is a lifestyle.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Welcome back. You're still tuned in to Salam Media. The time is 27 minutes past 8. And before we went to the break, we were chatting to Professor Mia Swart there. And Prof, before we went to the break, I touched a bit on the upcoming United Nations Security Council scheduled vote, which is happening tomorrow. Where the Palestinian Authority has requested a full UN membership. How do we see that panning out? And also the influence of the European countries that we're talking about influencing that vote possibly?
Right. So at the moment, 139 UN states have already recognized Palestinian statehood, which is quite a high number. There's 193 states within the UN, and then 139 of these have already recognized Palestine as a state. Again, I think it's going to be, incredibly difficult to expect, dramatic change tomorrow or in the next days. Countries such as Germany and Italy will not, change their positions overnight. These are very strongly held foreign policy decisions for them. So I don't think that we're going to see that many countries shifting. It's also important to remember that there are other forms of other ways in which Palestine can exert its statehood. For example, Palestine is a member of the ICC. It became a member of the ICC around 2014 already, and it considered that step as a major assertion of statehood. So it's not just within the UN that it matters to be a state or recognized as a state, but this UN recognition is highly significant. And it's going to be very interesting to see how many states are going to change course. But I think that, again, the wealthiest, most influential states, certainly the US, will be kicking against it.
And, you speak on the significance of being a full UN member state. Looking at Palestine and what's currently happening right now, if that vote does, go in their favor and, they do get that full UN membership as a state, what would be some of the, how can I put it? So some of the advantages, some of the incentives that come with being a UN member state that might see them possibly assist them in the current genocide that's occurring?
Okay, well, again, I have to be honest, I don't see a major change happening, right? I see some countries changing position, but I don't see the UN as a bloc formally at this stage already recognizing Palestine, because one of the requirements for statehood is a stable government. And, some countries will simply argue that Hamas does not represent a stable government. Whether you agree with this or not is a different matter. But that is certainly, one consideration states will look at. So one of the advantages, for example, of being a state is that you can assert yourself in various international fora, including the International Court of Justice. Palestine cannot, at this point, sort of formally be an actor at the International Court of Justice or consent to its jurisdiction because it's not a state. So for those kinds of purposes, it matters very much to be recognized as a state. In international law and international relations, there are these various organizations such as the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization, where you essentially participate and vote as a state. So it is going to, mean a lot for Palestine if it's recognized as a state. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope that countries surprise us and formally back Palestine as a state. But I still think it's going to be unlikely that one is going to get the necessary majority.
And lastly, just before I go, I think it was last month where we saw the US abstain on that UN ceasefire vote on Palestine. Is there maybe something that we can take out from there going into this vote, or this is just a different scenario, and they might veto the vote itself?
Well, okay. So what we saw actually was not an abstention, sorry, but it is the US actually did vote in favor of that last resolution. It has abstained on ceasefire
It's fine.
related
Yes.
issues, but it has the last vote. It did actually vote in favor of Palestine, but it then went ahead after the vote and said, it's not binding, which actually sort of jeopardized or sabotaged their own position. Just then immediately say, oh, but it's not binding, the Security Council resolution, which is wrong in law. Security Council resolutions are binding.
Yeah.
So this is important to remember that. The US remains a sticking point, because even when it did finally vote in favor of Palestine, it immediately, took a step back afterwards. So I think that in the Security Council, there's very little hope for real support for Israel because of the US's behavior. One is so unlikely to see binding decisions emanating from the Security Council. That is why it's important to look to maybe other international groupings, also other than the UN, that can exert influence.
All right. Professor Mia, I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insights, and we hope to catch up with you soon, but we're going to leave it here for now.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was visiting professor at Wits Law School, specializing in human rights and international relations, Professor Mia Swart, just giving us insight on how European countries are, starting to, not according to her, not maybe shift, but there seems to be an emergence of a change of mindset and policies, particularly from Spain, who's trying to, rally up the troops, so to say, and to get other countries to join them in support of Palestine, and also for some of the European countries to start relooking at their relations with the state of Israel. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Break the Siege flotilla, a freedom flotilla, which is set to launch from Istanbul, and how South Africa is involved. This flotilla is going to be having all kinds of humanitarian aid making its way to Gaza, and we'll be speaking about some of the dangers that might, be incurred, as international waters in the Middle East right now are a very, very dangerous place. Hanif Manju, Shirley Clay, I see your comments online. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. But they're a bit too long, and we're a bit pressed for time, but we'll see at the beginning of the show if we won't be able to read them. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, coordinator of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition in South Africa, Ismail Mula, will be joining us.